So Jon Jones right now is without an opponent. He has teased many things recently, including going to take on Israel Adesanya in the light heavyweight division, including also going back to the light heavyweight division to potentially get his belt back against Jan Blachowicz. Also teasing for what feels like the past decade, moving up to the heavyweight division, and a ton of great matchups that could happen there. So I thought, what better time to go through the top 5 most dangerous threats to Jon Jones in the UFC right now, starting with number 5, ending with number 1, and starting with our number 5 threat to Jon Jones. Let's waste no more time. Thiago Santos, in brackets on my document, 2 legs. That would be an ideal situation in my opinion. Thiago Santos near enough beat Jon Jones on 1 leg. It was a razor close fight. I thought Jon Jones won that fight. I thought Dominic Reyes beat Jon Jones, but I did not think that Thiago Santos beat Jon Jones, but a lot of people do, and I do credit their opinion. It was a close fight. It was a razor close fight. Santos landed the bigger shots. Jones landed more of them. I understand. I thought that Jon Jones won that fight against Santos, but I cannot deny that while Santos had 2 legs in that fight, and by the way, I think he may have came in with an injury as well, because there's no way all of your ligaments of your knee are blowing out like that, unless you've got something coming in. But still, Santos was destroying Jon Jones. He was doing really well, chopping away at the legs, and I think he's one of the better styles to beat Jon Jones. Jon Jones, you know, showed the championship mindset in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. I thought he could have maybe won all of those rounds. He did very well against all of them, and I think he has an amazing chance of getting it done. Thiago Santos with 2 legs is a very dangerous man for Jon Jones because he just throws stuff. I feel like the people that go crazy after Jon Jones are the people who are going to have a way better chance. I was maybe going to include Dominic Reyes at number 5 on this list, or Alexander Rakic. I decided against both of them. Rakic, I feel like, still needs to prove one more thing to me before I put him on the list top 5 against Jon Jones, including the heavyweight division as well. I mean, we'll get to those in a second, but still, Santos is number 5 on my list. I was thinking of Dominic Reyes, but he's coming off a KO loss. I don't know if he's going to be in the same place mentally, let alone chin-wise in his career moving forward, but still maybe not have the same confidence, etc., etc. But I think if Santos gets past Teixeira and then maybe takes the belt at light heavyweight, he could have a real good chance of beating Jones with 2 legs, going crazy in the 1st, 2nd round, because listen, although Santos is older, it seems like Jones is slowing down, and some dangerous guy with haymakers could be the one to get it done. Moving on, Israel Adesanya sits at number 4 on my list, mainly because although he's a smaller guy, okay, and he is a middleweight, he has made my top 5 because he's very dangerous, and I think he has, other than inside the fight cage, inside the cage, Adesanya might not be as much of a threat, but there are outside things that come into play when it comes to Israel Adesanya. Jon Jones in the cage could probably take down Israel Adesanya and rip his arm off, as he said he would like to do to Israel Adesanya, by the way. Jones could very well get a hold of Adesanya, take him for a spin, be a much, much bigger man than him, and I know that a lot of people say they aren't, but I don't even think Adesanya's 6'4". Watching him square up against Paulo Costa, there's no way he's 6'4", and there's no way that Paulo Costa's 6'1" if he is 6'4". But either way, Adesanya's a bit skinnier. Jon Jones, dangerous guy. I think that Jon Jones would beat him in the cage, but Adesanya, as I said before, the things outside of the cage that come into play is that Adesanya's mental warfare game, I feel like, is what going to want to make Jon Jones stand up with him. And that's where the problem lies. If Jon Jones tries to stand up with Israel Adesanya, right now in Israel Adesanya's career, he seems like he's turned over a new leaf. Like he's just become this absolute destroyer of people. Like before, he used to make things close. He had some good finishes, don't get me wrong, in his career, but even some of them, like the Vettori fight, was quite close. He lost a round of that fight. I thought he won the fight. It wasn't a split decision loss or a win, in my opinion. I thought it was a unanimous decision, 2-1 for Israel Adesanya, but still, Adesanya won. He went 5 rounds of Tavares, but recently he is annihilating people, and I think that's got to be taken note of. He seems like he's built himself into the middleweight division. The light heavyweight division is soon to come. It is a 20-pound difference, which is a huge deal in my opinion. But I think if Adesanya could keep this trash talking up and get in Jon Jones' head a little bit more, maybe he could trick Jon Jones into standing up with him long enough for Adesanya to get off enough leg kicks and maybe enough combinations to make something happen. That's why he's at number 4 on my list, despite being a middleweight. Moving on, up my list to Jan Blachowicz at light heavyweight. I think that Jan is more of a threat than Adesanya. I really do. I don't think Adesanya... Listen, I understand that Adesanya has power, and he has been KOing people, but I don't think there's a different kind of power required at light heavyweight, okay? Because a lot of people have power at middleweight, then they go up to light heavyweight, and it just seems like they fit in. When you stand out for power at light heavyweight, I think you're at a different kind of level. Don't get me wrong, Adesanya has power. But light heavyweights are KOing Tavares stiff in the first round. That's just kind of what's going to happen, okay? I'm just going to mention those kind of things. I know Adesanya has KO'd Whittaker and Paulo Costa. I get it. I really do. But I feel like at light heavyweight, there's a different build, there's a different frame, and there's a different power, and some of it is bullish. So Jan Blachowicz is number 3 on my list above Israel Adesanya. He's got great leg kicks. He's really tough. He's very experienced as well. He's also got some other things. I think he has better takedown defense than Israel Adesanya by far, which is why I've put him above Adesanya, other than the obvious other reasons. I think Blachowicz has much better takedown defense. And if there's a chance of a light heavyweight to stuff the takedowns of Jon Jones, Jan Blachowicz recently seems like he's really got his takedown defense down, because he's really stopped Luke Rockhold, who's a dangerous grappler. Jacare Souza couldn't take down Jan Blachowicz whatsoever. Corey Anderson had some opportunity, couldn't get it done. Jan Blachowicz is a dangerous man, and he's got great takedown defense. He's at number 3 on my list. And also, I think as well, much as I said with Adesanya, the mental games of Adesanya can have an effect on Jon Jones, but I think they would make Jon Jones show up more for Adesanya. I'm not subscribing to this dumb belief that Jones has picks and chooses fights that he shows up for. But I think that Adesanya would really motivate Jones more than a fight with Jan Blachowicz would anyway. Just because out of the spite. You know, I really think Jones would want to destroy him. And the way that Jones even talks about Adesanya, I believe that Jones would overlook Blachowicz. That's my entire point here. I'm not saying that Blachowicz deserves to be overlooked or anything like that. I just think that personally, Jon Jones would easily overlook Jan Blachowicz, and there'd be more of a chance of him getting caught with something for not being as switched on as he should be. Jan Blachowicz is a dangerous man, and everyone seems to overlook him right now, including DC as well, acting like, look, I look at Jan Blachowicz and think I could go back there and get it done, says DC. The last title defense at light heavyweight he had was against Volkan fucking Ozdemir. Big fucking whoop. But moving on, Jan Blachowicz I feel like might get overlooked. He's number 3 on my list of top 5 threats to Jon Jones. Moving on to number 2. Stipe Miocic on my list. Dangerous guy for Jon Jones. More importantly, and most importantly as well, the number 1 reason why he's a big threat to Jon Jones. One of the best eye poke defense in the game. I mean, he's been tortured. He's been literally painfully prepared for a Jon Jones fight in his past 3 against Daniel Cormier. I mean, the amount of eye pokes that Daniel Cormier landed on Stipe Miocic taught Stipe Miocic the way of the eye poke by the time of the trilogy bout in the 3rd one. He got eye poked so many times, he learnt the way of the eye poke the same way that his ancestors before him, DC, learned the way of the eye poke from Jon Jones after being poked by Jon Jones so many times. The torch has been passed. The finger has been passed. The finger has been passed all the way down the line to Stipe Miocic, and I think he's a dangerous man. Stipe Iron Miocic, very dangerous for Jon Jones. Crazy power in the first round. Great boxing, great wrestling. Can't really be taken down or held down by anyone, including DC. Had some success, but then Stipe Miocic showed that he can easily get out of those situations. He stays calm, he waits for his moment, he gets back up. Great takedown defense, great offensive wrestling as well that I'd like to see if he could use on Jon Jones if things start going south in the stand-up. But one thing I want to mention is, I think you need to make Stipe Miocic pay. That's what I think. And I think if Jon Jones goes up to heavyweight, I don't think he has the power to make the heavyweights pay, because Jones doesn't have the power to make light heavyweights pay. That's just a fact. I think if he moved up, he'd need some real sting on his shots and some big power to make Stipe Miocic not just walk him down and beat him up really in the boxing, because as much as I like Jon Jones, boxing is his downside, and a lot of people are going to be like, oh, that's crazy, Jon Jones' boxing is his downside. Anyone who knows, Jon Jones' boxing is his real weak spot. His kicks are what make him so good, and he could use them on Stipe Miocic, don't get me wrong. I just think that eventually Stipe might put some pressure on him, get it done, use some good head movement, some quick hands moving forward, get him in the clinch, be stronger there than Jon Jones. It's all going to depend on how Jon Jones looks at heavyweight, but I think when moving up to heavyweight, that's where we open the can of worms for Jon Jones to get defeated. And Stipe Miocic is number 2 on my list because of that. I reckon he could really stand a chance of KOing Jon Jones in the 1st or 2nd round just by catching him clean. He came out really switched on against Daniel Cormier in the trilogy. Showed me kind of that he still had it, because although in the first fight against DC, he looked good and he was winning the round, he didn't look as switched on. He looked a little bit lethargic. In the second fight as well, he looked very lethargic as well. Let DC kind of beat up on him a little bit, but then again, DC was beating up on Jon Jones in the rematch. People seem to forget about that. He was doing real well against Jon Jones in a rematch. But still, Stipe looked like he was switched on in the trilogy. Start to finish. Really good footwork. Light on his feet. Bouncy around. He looked like he improved. I like Stipe Miocic's chances. And he's number 2 on this list. Moving on. Francis Ngannou is number 1 on the list of my top 5 threats to Jon Jones. I just think he's an absolute bad matchup for Jon Jones. I've said this for the longest time. And it's the reason why Santos is above Rakic and other people on the list at number 5 that maybe should be there instead of him. I think the wild man beats Jon Jones. I've said that for the longest time. I remember back in the day, I thought that the only guy that was going to beat Jon Jones was Rumble Johnson. Someone who's crazy, someone who throws caution to the wind, as they say, goes forward, tries to land big shots, forgets about what Jon Jones is going to try and do to him back, and just tries to impose their own game. And to be fair, every time we've seen people come forward against Jon Jones, it's worked. Look at the one guy who beat Jon Jones, Dominic Reyes. He's Dominic Reyes, but he also moved forward the entire time that fight. I know he's an athlete as well, which is something that really is needed to be brought up every 10 fucking seconds. But still, Dominic Reyes went forward in that fight, threw caution to the wind, and really went after Jon Jones, made him back up, and made Jon Jones pay in those first 3 rounds. I think if Dominic Reyes can land those kind of shots, then Ngannou can maybe catch him a couple times, okay? Jon Jones was throwing jabs and getting hit by rear bolo uppercuts from Dominic Reyes, who's got very short arms, okay, and not as long as arms as Jon Jones. Ngannou has long arms, if not longer than Jon Jones's. I'm not actually too sure. I think he might have a slight disadvantage, maybe, but they're pretty equal in terms of reach. If Dominic Reyes is catching with those rear bolo uppercuts as you rush in after a jab, you're getting hit with rear bolo uppercuts. Jon Jones is lucky he has reach. And I think if he moves in against Ngannou, that's going to be gone. And I know Jon Jones could go in there and do some good work, but I just don't think he has the strength, the size, the power, and the consequences for Ngannou in the first round that Stipe had to make Ngannou fight a different way in the second round onwards, and I think Ngannou would beat him in the first. I've always said this, I think Ngannou would leave Jon Jones unconscious in the first round, just because he'd move forward, and Jon Jones's defensive boxing is just not right. And although you can eat those shots at light heavyweight where you're rolling away from them, you can't do that against Ngannou. You got to avoid him altogether or eat him on the forehead, and even if you eat him on the forehead, good luck. Ngannou's the number 1 threat to Jon Jones in the UFC right now. Thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know who you want me to cover next. I'm probably going to wait until next week to do the Khabib top 5 threats because it's Khabib's fight week at 254, so I thought it'd be a great time to do that kind of thing. Let me know who else after that, though. Maybe the week after you could give me a suggestion. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. That's my list. Yeah, I'll go through them one more time. Santos with 2 legs. Israel Adesanya at 4. Jan Blachowicz at 3. Stipe Miocic at 2. And Ngannou at 1. Toodle pip. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. And goodbye. See you later.